I went to high school in Pennsylvania.
I went to high school in Pennsylvania.
I went to school in New York.
I went to Scotch Plains Fanwood High School in New Jersey.
I went to school in Lawrenceville, New Jersey.
I went to Smithtown High School East in Long Island, New York.
I don't necessarily think that the segregation that the education system in the U.S. has now is necessarily racial, but I do think socioeconomically there is segregation.
I don't think that there's like segregation that there used to be in schools, but I see an obvious divide.
I do believe there's some form of segregation in our education system today. It's a lot different than it used to be. I think that now it's kind of unwritten, and back in the 60s when it was a problem, it was legally binding, and now there's no laws saying you can or can't go to certain schools or do certain things, but geographically certain people tend to live in certain areas, so naturally there is some form of segregation.
Yes, I think there's a problem with ESL programs because sometimes I feel that children will treat someone who's in an ESL program differently, so I feel like there is some segregation within the school district.
The only segregation that I encountered in my school is just that within my district there were only 2 African American students.
I went to a Catholic high school, so most of the people, it was a private school, so most of the people were like upper to middle class white Catholic people, but there were like minorities also mixed into it, but I don't think there was anything I personally could have done because it was out of my hands.
The most segregation I encountered in my high school was between honors level and regular level classes. I found that in a lot of the higher level classes, you had more white kids than in the lower level classes. And as a student, there's not a lot that I could have done about that. But the problem, I would say that the walls still did exist between each level.
I don't believe the form of segregation that I believe we had affected me in any way, really. Definitely not negatively, but I do wish there was a more racially diverse atmosphere in my high school, because I think it would have been a lot better to experience a more diverse environment.
I think there were times whenever it was like hard because we didn't like get to know the other groups, and so it wasn't very like inclusive within different groups, and you didn't like ask other people you just didn't meet everyone, which kind of sucked.
So I think segregation in school negatively impacted the school and the classroom because it really didn't help the overall achievement of the student. It kind of held them back because they didn't test themselves more than they could have, and I feel that if the school kind of incorporated everybody and didn't hold them back a little bit, it would have went more smoothly.
Yeah, I do think there is a problem with segregation. Especially in urban areas, you have urban core communities that are predominantly minorities, and white flight out of those urban areas, and then you have this often a suburban ring around that's all white, and so that's a segregating experience.